Sorry, was that... I think Chad just entered the room. Oh my god.
Chad, do you have anything to add to our podcast?
And they say that I hear... No, he's just going to sing it again.
Oh, okay,
no,
cool.
I don't think he has anything.
All right, thank you for coming in, Chad. All right, that was wonderful.
Welcome back to The Human Spider. That's it. That's the best you've got. Your one-stop shop for all things that are specifically about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films. I'm Casey.
I'm Zane.
So I think the last episode really does require an apology on our parts. I think we literally did not talk about Spider-Man at all in our Spider-Man specific podcast, so sorry. We'll try not to talk about Master of Disguise this time, but at the same time, that film offers a wealth of opportunities, so no promises.
Right. We'll keep an open mind.
And also, big news, in the past week, Zane and I have both found some very interesting things and also watched some very interesting things.
Oh, yeah.
We watched Spider-Man 3 in all of its majesty.
Heck yes. Such a better film than a lot of people give it credit for.
Genuinely, it's great. I had an absolute blast watching it, and you liked it more than the second one, didn't you?
That's just... that might just be my childhood love for Venom showing its true colors. Because I definitely always really liked Venom and definitely always didn't care for Doc Ock for some reason. So it was probably... had something to do with that. But there's something about the... Not like boring darkness, but there's something about the edginess of Spider-Man 3 that appeals to me more, I think. And
it's because you're edgy.
Mm-hmm. Just like Tobes. Just like, what would you call Toby's, or, Stefan? Like, what's his Urkel, like, cool guy Urkel name? What's Toby's cool guy Urkel?
Blaze.
Blaze. Okay. Blaze McGuire.
Blaze McGuire.
When he's walking down the street, strutting his stuff, doing some dance moves, that's not the edgy I'm talking about. That's a character choice. His character would choose to be a little bit of an asshole to women on the streets. That's just who Blaze is.
You know what's funny, though? Like, him acting that way in the movie is so in character for if that Peter Parker was to be infected by a symbiote. Is that how you say it? Because I know
symbiote. Yeah.
Symbiote. Okay. Because I know in the trailer of Venom,
they say
one
it
of the
like
characters.
3 different ways.
Yeah, she said it differently, and people were all angry.
Yep.
Understandably.
Symbiote.
So yeah, he's infected by the symbiote, and he acts just like as nerdy as a dark, edgy Peter Parker would, and it works so well. Oh my god! And I love his dancing. And he just suddenly obtains the vernacular of a wizened jazz musician from the 50s. Yeah, now dig on this. When he enters the bar with Gwen Stacy, and he pulls the poor waitress aside and he says, "Find me some shade."
Find me
some
like
$4.
Find some shade. And she's disgusted by him. She's just like, okay.
She's openly she's like, you could have just asked for a table for 2. I mean, it's not like we're packed right now. Oh, but anyway, or rather, release the RAIMI cut.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty big news. I found it on the RAIMI memes subreddit, which is great. And if you ever need some good lols, go to that. But basically, the release the RAIMI cut is a thread created by this guy on Twitter at WilliamD1123, which basically compiles all of the deleted alternative extended scenes from Spider-Man 3, collected from, like, I'm reading this directly off of his tweet, by the way.
Okay.
Various trailers, featurettes, behind-the-scenes photos, and even, this is the one that gets me, the novelization of the film. So basically, and he tweeted this back in May of 2018, so it's not new. It's just, for some reason now, it got, like, propelled by Raimi. So yeah, what do you think of that?
I would love seeing a Raimi cut of Spider-Man 3. I think that it's something that is so swept under the rug because of how poorly people think this movie did, which, in fact, it's very important we throw this out there. I remember when we were talking during the movie, even when we were to the end of it, and I was just saying that I really don't know why this movie was considered so bad, other than, like, I mean, the storyline, sure, it wasn't as clear-cut as the first two, but it didn't do a bad job at, or a fully bad job at trying to tell the story it was trying to tell, for having 3 supervillains in it at once. Ambitious, but we talked about it, and I asked you what you thought were the reasons that it, like, kind of fell off the grid, and then Spider-Man 4 didn't happen, and, like, what went on there. And you said that you thought it was because it didn't do well in the box office. And then we looked it up, and it did surprisingly well in the box office.
Yeah, didn't you say it did, like, close to or over 800 million worldwide?
I'm pretty sure it did 890 million
wow.
within the box office. Its budget was 250 million.
That's insane.
And it did 890 million. And it did better than Spider-Man 2, the Raimi Spider-Man 2. It did better by 100 million. And then it did better than Mark Webb's and Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man. It, fun fact, America, did better than Spider-Man Homecoming. That's probably one of the biggest pulls for this, in my opinion, because so many people talk so highly about Tom Holland's Spider-Man. They talk so highly about now the cinematic universe and the turn that they've taken with giving him the suit made by Tony Stark, etc., etc. And
crap.
From how much people talked about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and from how advertised it was and loved by the masses, you would have thought that it would have made way more than this movie that was swept under the rug. But even what's considered the death of Raimi's Spider-Man still did better than what people love right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's where the Raimi cut kind of comes in, because it is the most, like, critically maligned of the Spider-Man films.
Fun fact, just a little bit of addition, looking at every Spider-Man film that came out, the 3 Raimi, the 2 Mark Webb, Homecoming, and including Venom and Spider-Verse,
sure.
Spider-Man 3, Raimi's Spider-Man 3 did the best out of all of them.
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it.
That's amazing.
Like, coming off of the whirlwind of brilliance that was Spider-Man 2, people were probably, like, stoked for this one. And plus Venom, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, the whole deal with Spider-Man 3 and Sam Raimi openly denouncing it is that there was a lot of studio interference, and they pushed to include Venom, which I guess worked on you, because that's the reason that you love it.
Yep.
And that's the reason that he doesn't. So, I mean,
there's one thing that they definitely got right with Venom. They made him terrifying, which is weird, because a lot of people nowadays, if you know too much about Topher Grace as a person, and you think of him just as Eric Foreman in that 70s show, really hard to be able to pull yourself back and think of him as a villain in a film. But if you don't care and you don't let it influence your opinion as a child, and you just think, oh, this is Venom, then you're like, oh, wait, well, good, they made him malicious. And then the transformation scene with Venom was, in my opinion, pretty beautiful. And then also the frickin' scream, the frickin' Venom screech. That's good. They didn't try and make him any kind of comedic relief. They didn't try to give him jokes. They just pointed out the fact that he's, and I think this was in the Raimi cut storyline too, that Eddie Brock was supposed to have some, like, falling out with Gwen Stacy on camera, and then he was also supposed to have some other falling out that was supposed to make us understand better why, when he's at the church, why he wants Parker dead. And it's because so much bad is happening to him that he thinks he doesn't deserve all of this, and so he wants to just kill Parker for embarrassing him. Like, Eddie's that dumb, but also, like, evil-minded to think that you embarrassed me, so I'm gonna kick your ass. But if you embarrass me to the extent that I can't get a job in this town anymore, I'm just gonna break you.
And when I was watching Spider-Man 3 when it came out, Spider-Man 3 I think is the only one, I think I mentioned this in the pilot episode, that I didn't actually see in theaters.
Yeah.
I was begging my dad. I said, Pep, you got to take me to see this new Spider-Man film. You know I love him, and I always have. And he must have read the reviews or something, so he didn't. He never took me. But when it came out on DVD, that guy bought it for me. I watched it, loved it. And as I was watching the Topher Grace transformation scene, I was just thinking, man, that guy would play a mean David Duke. You know, the KKK head man.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, man, what a vicious asshole. He could totally be a racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
And then Spike Lee.
Spike Lee had the same mindset as you.
Spike Lee was watching Spider-Man 3, and as he was watching Venom screech, he was like, damn, that guy sounds a lot like David Duke.
Just and then unnecessary yelling at good people.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of people on like the trending of the hashtag release the Raimi cut that are like, there's like two sides. There's one that's like like, god damn it, if the DC universe fanboys have their own, you know, pipe dream of the Snyder cut for Justice League, as if that would in any way fix the movie, because that's just an absolute train wreck of a movie.
Yeah, first off, it needs to be written well to start.
Yeah, you need characters that are developed and sympathetic, not Henry Cavill with a bizarrely CGI'd clean face that looks like a wax lip. And then the other half, which is the majority, is just like a bunch of people stoked, like you gotta do this, and there's like memes and shit. Mm-hmm. It's very, very good. It's a fun thing to come out now when we are doing this podcast, because what are the chances?
Yeah, now we're around just in perfect time to talk about it. If the Raimi cut came out, there would also be there was extra stuff to do with Sandman on the beach, like looking after his kid. That would give us a stronger connection to his like personal life, so that we would be more enveloped in his character. That would be beautiful, because I think it's not that it's hard to be kind of sympathetic towards Sandman. I think it's just that the guy playing Sandman to me was a little too deadpan for all the film. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but like...
Yeah, I think it lies with both the writing and the performance, because he was very flat. I thought Osborn attacking Peter, that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Venom was even... Oddly enough, Venom was even more established than Sandman was, and he's the part of the movie that was just kind of dropped in when Raimi didn't want it to.
Yeah.
You know, because you understand why he wants to, like, kill Peter, because Peter just, like, messed his whole life up. Yeah, there's, like, a bunch of stuff from whoever William D., mm-hmm. for compiling this. God bless you, sir. Because he even went through the novelization, which I did not realize there were. I guess there might have been a small part in the back of my mind that realized that, like, whenever big tentpole movies come out, they usually have novelizations for, like, children. But gosh darn it, do I want to read this so badly right now.
Okay. Other pieces of releasing the Raimi cut that I found fascinating, when Sandman is supposed to have had a scene where he goes to visit the doctor that's working on a cure for his daughter.
Oh.
And that was a part where, like, basically it looks like he's threatening the doctor to work harder or faster on finding the cure. And now that he has, you know, Sandman powers, he's more intimidating. That was another thing, is cutting all of the daughter storyline. I get more of instead of us sympathizing with him, really, we're just on the side of like, oh, a little pissed off, just like Parker, that this guy is now supposedly the real guy that, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen Raimi's third movie, killed Big Ben. That's a big twist within his films, and even though it's not canon to comics, I'm not against it. It wasn't like a big heartbreaking wrong turn. It was just another addition within a film universe based off a comic book, and they decided to have us hate Sandman enough that we could kind of side with Peter becoming more evil, as opposed to us sympathizing with Sandman and worrying about Peter becoming more evil.
I think they should have kept in the film when Sandman goes up to wine country with Paul Giamatti, and then he cheats on his fiance with Sandra Oh. I thought that would have been a very compelling sequence.
If they had kept in the moment that Peter Parker in the black suit stumbled upon, instead of a jazz club, this nice yacht party that took him over to a nice big mansion, where he then met a man who was running the party, but nobody had ever met this guy. I think it would have been fascinating to see how Black Suit Spider-Man reacted when he finally met the man, the myth, the legend of the Gatsby.
Yeah, and it also would have fit really well with the time frame of Gatsby, in that Black Suit Spider-Man is basically transported back in time to an easier time, swinging jazzy time, with his newfound jazzy vernacular. So that's the whole Raimi cut, right? The Raimi cut, which also includes Alexander Payne and Baz Luhrmann. There we go.
More on the Raimi cut. The Doctor was in this movie a lot, and I feel bad for the guy that was going to play him, because I don't think he was in the movie at all.
Yeah, no, I don't think we didn't see any scenes with any doctors.
But he was supposed to be threatened by the Sandman to cure the daughter faster. Then apparently Gwen Stacy was supposed to go. They talked, and then the Doctor was like, "Hey, I know how to stop this guy." And then he goes over to Sandman's wife and daughter, and he grabs the daughter and has the daughter run over to the Sandman fight, where the daughter sees her father as Sandman. And I think it would have been there were a couple of dang heartbreaking moments within this film. That would have been another one where he wants to do right by his daughter so badly, and then to see a giant monster of a man just start to break because he can't do this in front of his own daughter.
Oh, God.
There was an alternate Sandman ending where, after falling to the ground, Sandman returns to normal size to kill Spider-Man. After that, Emma and Penny intervene, and with Penny telling her dad it's not worth fighting anymore, he should just be with her. So it's is this another alternate Sandman ending? Where
that would have been huge if the daughter stepped in, and because she was always the inspiration for him to be a criminal, because he always just wanted money to save her.
Yeah.
But then if she just comes in, oh man, that would have been so good.
Yeah, there was also Sandman tells Spider-Man what happens with Uncle Ben, and Spider-Man forgives him. Essentially, it's the same as what happened in the theatrical cut, but it would have been in a different location and at a different time in the film. There was also an alternative Venom ending, and this I thought was super freaking interesting, was that after Spider-Man surrounded Venom with the ringing poles, Spider-Man yanks out Eddie from the symbiote, but it reveals that he's just a bunch of bones now, and that the symbiote had completely bonded with Eddie.
Oh, Christ, that sounds awesome.
That right? That would have been the dark turn that film desperately would have called for at the end. Because he was so obsessed and enthralled with the idea of all this power with Venom that he jumped back in, even though it was going to kill him in that split second. But the idea of him just jumping in and being completely taken over, because that's what the symbiote's supposed to do. It's supposed to eat away at its hosts until Eddie Brock's no longer Eddie Brock with Venom. It's just solely Venom. For Spider-Man to pull out the body of Eddie Brock would have been such an amazingly dark and interesting turn to see what Spider-Man's next move would be. Because this movie, it's not surprising to see this movie franchise take a darker turn, because like Green Goblin in the first movie would blow people up. We saw people dissolve. And
he got stabbed in the torso and blood came out of his mouth. Like, that's huge.
Yeah, he got stabbed by his glider. We saw Spider-Man, Peter Parker, throw a literal bomb back at not Norman Osborn, but at Harry Osborn. We saw him throw it at his friend. Yeah, that was a big moment. We saw in this film he not just hit, but like physically just slapped the heck out of Mary Jane. Like,
yeah, that was rough. I didn't remember that. And watching it, that kind of took me by surprise. I was like, God damn, man, he was acting like an addict.
Yeah, like,
very cool.
It's supposed to be a really, really good way of portraying how, if you aren't right enough in the mind with all the power that the symbiote contains, it literally eats away everything you used to be until you're gone. And like it shows with everything that Peter does, because Peter would never hurt a friend, but with the symbiote, it's not just that he would hurt a friend. He very nonchalantly was willing to have just killed Harry in that moment. And then he, without question, didn't care for a second that he had hit or that he was emotionally abusing Mary Jane. It was like, they weren't just like, I don't care, scoff, like angsty teen moments. They were like, he could have just become a supervillain within that moment.
That would have been gnarly. But I think that the coolest scene in the movie was when he took Eddie Brock's, I almost said computer, Eddie Brock's camera, and smashed that shit against the wall. And then he jumped down the manhole. Well, it wasn't a manhole. It was a grate that he literally ripped out of the ground.
You're right.
And it was just absolutely badass. Oh my god. What if he just killed Eddie there?
I wouldn't hold it against Black Suit Spider-Man.
Break his jaw.
Like that, yeah.
So when you were what, 10 when you first saw Spider-Man 3? Do you think you would have like cried if you saw Tony Parker
Tony Parker
rip out? That's what
Parker.
Blaze Parker, thank you.
Blaze McGuire.
When you saw Blaze McGuire take out a skull from the symbiote, would you have cried like a little baby?
I don't know, because at this point I might have been fascinated. It would have left me heartbroken if, after pulling out the skull, like, Venom just fell apart and was nothing anymore. Because to me, that would have just been like, they didn't just get rid of him, they killed him, and that would have annoyed me. But at this point, realizing what the symbiote is and does, it would have fascinated me if, like, they left it where Eddie Brock was dead, Venom was on the loose, and now in Spider-Man, like, I would have loved a very intense, dramatic cliffhanger of, people think Spider-Man's a bad guy. He's literally just sitting there with not just a dead person in Harry, but like a dead body, bones.
The dead friend. Not his best friend, but his dead friend, Harry.
Yeah, a dead Harry friend. And then imagine if in the movie they had also killed off either Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane, and things just started taking such a dramatically weird turn that I started planning out what Spider-Man 4 would kind of look like in my head. Because I was thinking, if they have Venom in here, and they're not going to use him that much, they could easily get away with the symbiote starting to take over, where, like, if one person got injured and they needed to rush him to the hospital, say this small little innocent redhead boy gets rushed to the hospital because he's injured on the scene, and they rush it and they try and fix him with what they've just recently found and discovered, and it turns out that they're giving him a different symbiote. And this symbiote is my favorite Marvel boy of all time, Carnage. And
Carnage.
oh my god, if you want scary, you go Carnage. Like, Venom is intimidating and terrifying. Carnage is the encapsulation of night terrors within a comic villain. He's that thing that you see when you're paralyzed and can't do anything else. He's there's so much that they could have done where Carnage he's faster, he's stronger, he's more reckless, more psychotic than Venom. They could have had Spider-Man and Venom eventually team up to try and take down Carnage. They could have had and I don't know how much of this you're gonna know off the top of your head as well, Venom and Carnage at some point have a symbiotic baby where it is they have a baby named Toxin, and Toxin is a mix of Venom and Carnage that is quite indestructible, and that would have been a massive movie move if they had done that with I think it would have been cool to see like half of a dark movie where he's fighting Venom all the time and Venom looks unbeatable, and then getting the dramatically deep voiced Venom on Spider-Man's side to take down Carnage, because Carnage is harder to beat. They have to like engulf him in like a sound wave barrier, like as opposed to just like all these ringing bars in a circle. They have to like actually get him in like a dome and just ring all of the symbiote off of Cletus Cassidy.
So you're saying that they need a biodome?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I think that, so if Peter sits down Carnage, puts on his VHS copy of Biodome, would Carnage then be forced to fuck off the face of the earth?
Quite possibly, yes.
I think that's what most people do whenever they see that movie, so I don't see anything wrong with it. I would assume that Biodome is available in the Spider-Man cinematic universe, right?
Yeah, there's no reason it wouldn't be. I think
like 9/11 happened, so I'm sure Biodome happened.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you go to the movie store as Black Suited Spider-Man, if you flip your hair because it's getting in the way of your eyes, as your neck turns towards the movie shelf, you'll get a glimpse and see that it is right there under the
Well, actually,
beads.
he wouldn't look for it himself. He would very pridefully go to the counter, ask the nice person working at Blockbuster Video, get a hold of Biodome for me, would you? And he hands him like a nickel. He flicks it at him, and the guy looks at him, or girl, forgive me, and he questions the veracity of Spider-Man. Well, he doesn't know it's Spider-Man. Unless, are you saying that it's literally Spider-Man walking in without his mask on?
Oh, real question. Would Blaze McGuire roam the streets without his mask on as Black Suit Spider-Man?
Yeah, so he has his
total Blaze move.
He has his pants off and his mask off.
Mm-hmm. Just the chest piece.
Yeah, just the chest piece and his gloves.
Yeah. And the boots.
That's actually true. The boots are important because you don't want to walk around New York City without boots on.
No, gross.
You're gonna catch something. But yeah, he's free hanging. I actually think that's a very interesting thing. I wish that Blockbuster Video was still around. I know there's one left in America, but if I was to walk in and like very happily request a shitty movie like that, what do you think the clerk would do? Would they laugh? Would they ask why?
Would you ask very specifically for a movie that is just awful, or would you say, if you have any awful films, please recommend one for me? Because I think you'll get two different reactions.
I would say, hello, good sir. Do you have any copies of The Amazing Spider-Man 2? And then he would just shake his head and be like, you're an absolute asshole.
You know what he'd do? He'd take your Blockbuster membership card that you have, and he would cut it right in half,
Oh my god, that is the cruelest thing anyone could ever do.
But it's well deserved after what you've just put him through. 5 seconds of pure torture, saying somebody wanted to rent out a Mark Webb movie by choice.
Do you remember when you've seen The Amazing Spider-Man 2, correct?
Yes, with thank you, Spider-Man. You remembered my birthday. I am your eyes and ears.
Yes, that one.
Mm-hmm.
What was your initial reaction? Because a lot of people say that Spider-Man 3 is a bad movie because of all of the villains, and then Spider-Man 2 comes right out the gate introducing 3 villains.
We got in Spider-Man 2. We got Electro, Hobgoblin for
and
some
Rhino.
reason, and oh yeah, there was a Rhino at the end that did nothing.
Yeah, he was just this big Russian asshole, and they thought that people would want another one of those movies, despite The Amazing Spider-Man 2 being genuinely difficult to watch. Like it was, I can't even begin to explain where it went wrong. Maybe it started with the fact that Jamie Foxx's teeth were fixed by his superpower. So
No,
that was cool.
not by the superpower, just by an eel.
Eels are notoriously phenomenal dentists. So they were able to fix his little teeth gap real quick. And also the fact that his whole motivation, we're talking about motivation for Sandman, we're talking about motivation for Venom. His whole motivation for being upset with Spider-Man is that he did not remember his name.
Yeah.
How friggin' weak is that? It's so stupid.
It's literally just like a moment where he's like, "Oh yeah, Max, like you're my eyes and ears, bud." And then like for a second, he just stops being on Spider-Man's side, just thinks he's lying to him, and then that's it. Yeah, they made Electro look weak, not like physically weak with all the electrical power, but they just made him look like a supervillain that caved into becoming a supervillain.
And I heard so many people, they're like, "Oh, but the ending is so like brave. They killed off Gwen."
No, it's not brave.
It's not brave because the rest of the movie is so stupid, and then that scene happened, and it was kind of like out of nowhere, and it was very dumb. Especially because he was like, "All right, stay here. Do not follow me. You can literally do nothing to help." And then she just fucking dies. And he's like, "Oh, okay, I said to stay, and you didn't."
So, 2 really important things. If you want to talk about the ambitiousness of multiple villains within a Spider-Man film, I was obsessed with the idea of that as a kid. I still am. Because I love the thought of, if you have the capability to write a good story with that many villains, do it. Hit me with intensity and really, really feeling like the hero's not going to be able to get out of this. Not in the way that Infinity War tried to do it. Like, quite literally the way that Raimi tried to do it, where they, to some extent, built up multiple villains, and then they all of their storylines just happen to fall out into the world at once. Sandman felt slightly forced, but that's just like, what are you gonna do? Because they wrote him in as a guy that he's not in the comics, and then they just kind of throw you this guy in the beginning. Eddie Brock is fine because he is a god amongst Spider-Man, where if you just know who he is, then you love the fact that he's around, and you're like, "Oh, I hope that he becomes Venom." And then you see the symbiote, and you're like, "There's no fucking way they're gonna include the symbiote without making him Venom. This is great." And then also the Goblin was built up over time, which was wonderful. Like you knew that he was gonna do that at some point, and then it just happened to be at the same time, and you're just like, "Wonderful! They're gonna throw this all at us." Electro and who else? The Rhino and freaking Hobgoblin, or it's just Goblin. I think Hobgoblin is James Franco, and then just Goblin is the guy from Chronicle.
Yeah, so that's another major misstep in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Not that casting anyone other than gosh darn Dane DeHaan would have helped the script. But Dane DeHaan is just a terrible actor. Like, the guy's just vacant behind the eyes. And I don't think I've ever seen a movie where he was, like, the real selling point. Like, he was great.
Right.
Or, excuse me, he's not great. But The Place Behind the Pines is phenomenal. And then he's just in, like, a third of that movie. And he doesn't do too much. He just plays a son. Chronicle's fine. But, you know, everybody obviously likes Josh Trank's follow-up, Fantastic, much better. Because it lacks Dane DeHaan. And it's also just a fucking hysterical movie. So yeah, basically that's my diatribe about how Dane DeHaan is not great, and people like him anyway.
The other thing that I had to throw out there is based off of what you said of people saying, oh, it was such a risk for them to take killing off Gwen Stacy. The reason that's not, in any way, a risk is because it quite literally happens in the comics.
Right. I think people were saying that it's a risk to put it in a movie like that, yeah.
Nah, that's the thing that sucks, because now we've gone from people that like the idea that Raimi's throwing out there to people that think that what Raimi's doing is far too ambitious to be in movies, and that's not how a superhero should be built. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, right? He's right before the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline technically starts.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Feige, who was the producer of all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, was actually a producer on Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, so Raimi was literally the godfather of the current phase of the MCU movies.
Fun fact, I think I saw an interview yesterday where they said that his last name is pronounced Feige.
Oh, I could not care less how to pronounce that man's name. He has more money than God, so I don't care. I'll say his name is Krevis Fingal. How's that?
All right, Krevis Fingal.
Yeah.
The Magic Man himself.
Magic Man himself, Krevis Fingal, godson of Mr. Stanley Lee.
Right. Stanley Lee.
Stanley Lee. Rest in peace, my little man. Mwah. And Jack Kirby. Can't forget Jack Kirby.
But these people that are taking quote-unquote risks nowadays in superhero films don't realize what they're missing out on by not taking actual risks.
Like making good films
exactly.
that take, have good writing and characters and motivation.
Exactly what I was gonna say. Yes,
weird.
It's their movies could be so good if they were willing to not be predictable. Raimi wasn't predictable. We thought literally in the first movie, Goblin, sure, because it was the first movie, we didn't know what to expect within Raimi. I don't think we expected Goblin was gonna die. I think people expect, he'll be defeated or run off or thrown in jail or something like that. And then when he dies, you're just like, Jesus, man. And it's graphic too.
He dies. That informs the progression of both Peter and Harry, and it really just makes the wheels spin for the future of the franchise, and it was a brilliant move.
And it's wonderful too, because they don't have to kill off all these villains in some theatrically extravagant way. They die like any other human.
They all kill each other, or they all kill themselves, rather.
It's the biggest pull. That's true. All of them oh my god, wait, this is right.
Yeah, they all kill themselves, basically.
All of them. Because Goblin stabs himself, Doc Ock drowns himself, Sandman just becomes one with the wind on his own.
Yeah, I don't think he died, actually. I think Sandman's still kicking.
Yeah, no,
Right?
I told you, he's supposed to, in the comics, he's supposed to die because Spider-Man is supposed to vacuum him up with a giant vacuum. Absolutely
badass. I think if anyone, honest to God, if any director could have handled that scene, Sam Raimi would have done absolute justice to that.
Yeah,
it would have been awesome.
But so Sandman fades off. Topher Grace ends up killing himself with Venom, where Tobey Maguire is expecting to just kill Venom's symbiote form, and then Eddie Brock is the person that kills himself. He wasn't supposed to be a part of it. Eddie just becomes a part of it. Also, Harry gets himself killed.
He jumped in front of the the glider.
Which is...
Like Pep.
Yeah.
Pep Goblin.
It's actually fascinating to think that, like, Spider-Man intended to kill... he intended to kill Sandman at one point. He intended to kill Harry Osborn at some point. And he might have even intended to kill Eddie Brock at some point. But even after actually attempting to, he's not the guy that ended up getting away with it in the end. He's not the one that had the final blow.
Good Peter always came through.
Good Pete.
Good baby boy Pete. So I'm looking at the Blu-ray right now of Spider-Man 3. Of course, I own all 3 films.
Good.
In the back of it, because I was hoping that it would say, like, includes bloopers and commentaries, but guess what it also features?
What?
A Snow Patrol music video.
What?
Heck yeah. Actually, hold up. I want to see if the first disc, or the first film has the what's the Nickelback song?
Oh my god. Yeah,
that's my favorite song. I love that thing. And they say a hero could save us. Not gonna stand here and wait. Oh my god. Sorry, was that... I think Chad just entered the room. Oh my god.
Chad, do you have anything to add to our podcast?
And they say that a hero... No, he's just gonna sing it again.
Oh, okay,
no,
cool.
I don't think he has anything.
All right, thank you for coming in, Chad. All right, that was wonderful.
That was really cool. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
People think that he's kind of a dink because he's a Nickelback. But...
Hopefully we'll have more guests that were a part of the Sam Raimi universe on this show.
Yeah. You know what?
I'm
what's
glad
fun?
We started with the lead singer of Nickelback.
Of course. That's the thing, though. Like, people are always... I feel like people treat Nickelback the same way they treat Spider-Man 3. I think people hate it because it's cool to hate it, you know? It's like how so many people hate like Fortnite right now because it's just the popular thing. But, like, whatever, dude. Just let people like the things that they like, unless it's the Amazing Spider-Man movies or anything other than Spider-Man, you know? Just go away. I think that I'm right and you're wrong. You know, it's another... I guess going back to discussing superhero movies and how it's just... They don't take any chances. It kind of sucks that movies based on familiarity make so much money, especially in terms of box office revenue, because, like, I was looking at Box Office Mojo the other day for 2018. It's like the top 11 movies technically are all like either sequels or based on things that are already known, or like I can't understand how Aquaman made over $1 billion worldwide.
No idea. Really,
but it makes
no
sense.
idea.
Actually, hold on, I'm gonna take a step back here. Aquaman has a song in it called "Ocean to Ocean" by Mr. Worldwide. Everybody's favorite.
Dale.
Thank you, Dale. Everyone's favorite musician. So
And,
I guess it does...
thank you, Pitbull, for being on the show. That was great to have you.
That was really cool. Not bad.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of musicians in. I feel good about it.
I don't feel bad. This is a good episode of the pod.
It's a good podsode.
Not a bad podsode. Was Mr. Worldwide able to hear you? Or was he able to hear me scream?
He was distracted taking a picture of someone taking a picture of him with a Kodak.
Oh, Mr. Worldwide. Oh, PitBill. My mother once called him PitBill by accident. Like, she immediately corrected it. But ever since she called him that, I have never been able to call him Pitbull. He's always been Pitbill to me. And I will never call him his actual name. Good. Because I do not respect him. Fan of the show, PitBill. Is PitBill a fan of the show?
PitBill is not only a fan of the show, PitBill is actually signing papers right now to become, if we ever need any musical accompaniment, he is signed on now to be our composer.
What?
Yeah.
So we're just going to be getting, like, Ocean to Ocean, but Spider-Man?
Spidey, yeah.
So what song is he going to sample for that, then? Hero? Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Most likely.
I think that's the best concept that we've had yet. PitBill sampling Chad Kroeger, for our podcast. That could be our new intro song. Rather than you playing piano like an asshole, we could have Mr. Worldwide playing piano like an asshole.
Fun fact, did you know that Spider-Man 3 not only was the highest grossing Spider-Man film of all time, but it was the highest in 2007?
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, no, I knew that, obviously.
Yeah,
I just have to play dumb for the audience. I'm not actually dumb.
I'm just curious now. I'm gonna run through finding the highest grossing superhero movies and see where it falls on the list. Wow! It's number 11.
That's, you know what's, dinosaurs are notoriously not funny, so I guess that makes sense. They're always so stoic and, like, I don't know, just boring.
Someone needs to make a good film with a dinosaur that's got a good sense of humor, and the only film I can think of with that is the Meet the Robinsons.
I'm gonna have to push back on that opinion right there, that incorrect opinion, because you clearly haven't seen Theodore Rex with Whoopi Goldberg.
No, what is this?
It's this. My bud at work told me about it. He said, we always talk about movies together, and I went up to him. I was like, "Yeah, did you watch anything new recently?" He was like, he looked me dead in the eyes. God. He looked me dead in the eyes and he said, "I watched Theodore Rex." And I looked at him and I was like, "What is that?" But I already kind of knew what it was, because I just immediately in my head I had this image of a grown man in a big rubber dinosaur costume with 3 Converse sneakers on each foot because of his big feet, you know?
Yeah, no, he's genuinely, just for the audience to understand, you know what a dinosaur's foot looks like the giant
3-pronged.
3-pronged toes, things, whatnot. He's literally got a Converse for each toe.
It's so stupid. I love it. And Whoopi's in it. And apparently Whoopi is part cyborg. And I asked him why. No, I think I asked him how he watched that, because I think it was a direct-to-VHS movie. I don't think it was ever released in theaters.
The trivia. Whoopi Goldberg made a verbal agreement to star in this film in 1993, and it came out in 95. When she tried to back out, because of course she would, the producer sued her for $20 million.
Wow.
The suit was settled very quickly when Goldberg agreed to star for $7 million. $2 million
Jesus.
more than the original agreement.
So she was sued and then ended up making money.
Yeah.
I like that. Homework for the audience. All 2 people out there so far. That'll be really ironic in a year when we're fucking
all the way up to 7.
International superstars with 7 followers.
Yeah.
Watch Theodore Rex.
Yeah.
That's all.
Big help. Theodore Rex is gonna, obviously at some point I'm gonna watch it and we're gonna talk about it. I think that it looks like a quality film. I just read another fact that said Whoopi Goldberg said that so much of the crew kept quitting the film that on her last day of shooting, 99% of the crew was different than day one.
Why would you quit that movie?
Probably.
What could have been so difficult?
Probably because they felt like they had already peaked. That if they had stayed in the moment a day longer, they would have OD'd on greatness.
That's true. That's like when TV shows end after like 5 or 6 years, like Breaking Bad. It's like, we're on a great point here. Let's end on a high note.
Exactly.
Gotta go, bye.